All right, YouTube, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel, and welcome back indeed. We're back from vacation, back to the normal setup, the normal format videos. I am very excited to jump into today's NBA slate. There's only 5 games, but like we always do, we're going to go through each and every one of these games. I'm going to give you my lean on the spread. I'll give you my lean on the total. Talk about any player props that I like as well within the game. But as always, keep an eye on the pinned comment of this video. If you do want to fade me and do the opposite of my final plays, all of those will live in the pinned comment. Before we get going, guys, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button as well. We grinded while we were on vacation, but now we are back here, back to the regular setup, back to the video, so very excited for that. If you couldn't tell, because I feel like I've said it already 10 times in the first 30 seconds of the video, but yeah, let's get underway. What are we wasting time for, right? Let's jump into game number 1 here. We have Orlando taking on Charlotte. Bunch of injuries on the Charlotte side of things, as we know and have come to learn by now throughout the season. This team's never healthy, but nothing major or new, I guess we could say, on that side of things. And then it looks like Orlando's going to be pretty healthy. No injuries to note, just Jonathan Isaac listed as probable here. Now, Orlando's 13-point favorites in this one. It's a lot of points, but I don't know if we could trust Charlotte as far as we could throw them, right? They've lost 8 of their last 10 games. They've only covered in 4 of their last 10 here. Last time they played Orlando, Orlando won 101 to 89, so they even covered their point spread at that time. And Orlando playing decent basketball, 3 straight wins, 3 straight covers. I got to lean towards Orlando here, minus a 13. If we were to pull the trigger on this, I may somehow work this into a same game parlay or something to potentially get a better line, like 9.5. I love that obviously a lot more than I do 13. So I don't expect minus 13 on the Orlando side of things to be a final play, but I do think that they should be able to win this game pretty substantially. Now, if we flip over to the total side of things, 202.5, that thing is so damn low. I can't take an under there, right? Like, I think this is a low-scoring game for certain. Like, both of these teams playing at a slow pace. If you look at the way that they've been playing, Orlando's defense has been kicking ass as of late. Charlotte's offense has been struggling to even get to triple digits. So I get why this line is at 202.5. It's just way too low for me to confidently be able to lean towards an under. So I do, by default, lean towards the over. I don't think I play that myself because these are 2 slow-paced teams. And their transition defense, as weird as it is, like, even Charlotte's transition defense isn't all that terrible. Orlando's is good. Like, this game should struggle to get to that line, but again, it's just way too low for me to comfortably take an under, so I slightly lean towards the over, but I doubt that becomes a final play. Now, if we jump into player props here, we'll jump over to Outlier. If you guys do want to check out Outlier, I'll have a link in the pinned comment. You guys will get 7 days free. I know I talk about Outlier all the time. We feature them on the streams all the time. It's because it literally is the best player prop research tool, in my opinion. The great thing about them, actually, we can just flash it up right now, is we had a call. I literally had a call with them and said, like, hey, here's some ideas and whatnot. You know, a month later or so, I had talked about putting potential assists and rebounds into the tool here. And look at this, literally potential assists there now, right? You go over to rebounds, rebound chances. They put things in. They're listening to the people, ladies and gentlemen. So go check out Outlier. That link is in the pinned comment. 7 days free. Try for 7 days. What do you have to lose? But the play that we're looking at here, we got a couple of them. I'm taking a peek at Gary Harris, over 1.5 3-pointers made. If we look at our zone shooting model here, you can see that Charlotte struggles with covering that right corner 3. Gary Harris leads the team right now in corner 3s per game. Orlando doesn't shoot a ton of 3s. So don't get me wrong here saying, I think he's going to shoot a bunch. You can even see his attempts have been around 4 or 5, that type of thing. So I'm not saying he's going to give you a bunch, but if he shoots 7 threes here, like, this is more of an anomaly than not. Him shooting 14% from the field. If he gets 7 attempts against Charlotte, in which he did have 2 threes last time they played, that was just earlier this month, I do think he cashes with 2 threes here. And again, look at the odds, plus 100. That is over on DraftKings. All other sportsbooks have this in the negative odds. So I do like this spot for him. to be able to give us at least some volume, but have a damn good chance of making 2-3. So that's a plus 100 play. If this was like minus 115, I don't think I'd like it as much. But again, I do like the fact that we're looking at a spot in which, you see a guy that shoots a decent amount of corner threes, has a decent percentage of making them, and you're getting plus money there, kind of that combo. And then another player prop. Now this line, I wish it was 19.5, like I've said all along, but Paolo Banchero over 21.5. Look at his last 4 games against Charlotte here, including these 2 games this season. 22, 23 points. Yes, he's right on the line, but the field goal attempts are there. 20, 26, 18, 19 in his last few games. If you look at his last 10, he's still hitting the majority of this. He's hit it in 6 of his last 10. One of the games was just that field goal attempts there, where, playing steady amount of minutes, but this field goal attempts, just 6 field goal attempts against Brooklyn. Clearly building some momentum after that game against Toronto. I don't mind his over 21.5 points here. In terms of odds, you're getting a good deal over on FanDuel, minus 125, 29, and minus 130 over on Caesar. So if you can snag that at minus 106, you definitely have some value there. So I honestly probably, if I were to rank the plays in this game, the player props, then the spread, and then the total in terms of chance of being a final play. But let's be honest here. We're talking Magic versus versus Charlotte. Like, is that really the best game? Not exactly. Let's go ahead and move on. Speaking of like tough matchups and stuff, there is a decent amount of these on the slate today. So yeah, it's only 5-game slate with not too many great games. You can tell by the spreads as well. But we're moving on here to Washington taking on Houston. We'll start with the player props because I don't have any player props I really like within this game. It's just not really that spot. Like I looked at Kuzma's over in points because I'd expect him to bounce back after a bad game last time. I just don't love the matchup. He's been trending in that direction, shooting enough times. Don't love the matchup. Same thing with Fred VanVleet. Over 8.5 assists. He's been getting plenty of potential assists, like a crazy amount, but I hate the matchup. So kind of pulling away from player props in this game. But in terms of a spread pick, sounding the psycho alert alarm here. I think there's just a little bit too much to give Washington in this spot. Now, do I confidently tell you guys right now that this is going to be a final play? Hell no. This is the Washington Wizards we're talking about here, but it's also the Houston Rockets on the road, who have only covered in 40.6% of games this season, right? Like, they're no amazing team in this spot. They are coming off of 5 straight wins. 4 of those 5 they covered in, so I'll give them their credit there. This is a Washington team that has a decent amount of rest. Same thing with Houston. I expect them to at least somewhat compete with them at home because, again, Houston's on the road. Now, if Houston was at home laying 9.5 points, this would flip on its head. So just keep that in mind, that this is totally based on location. And it's a lean. Like, it's got to stay at a lean. I don't think that I can confidently take Washington, even if you gave them 100 points. You know what I mean? In terms of a total, 227.5, it seems like that is a really low number to me. You have 2 teams that are playing with crazy fast pace. Like Houston's as slow as they were to start the year, playing with fast pace. We know Washington's not going to play a lick of defense and play some fast pace here. So I do think that this could be a spot in which this game gets up into the 230. So I'll lean towards the over as well. And again, that kind of suits Washington keeping it close because they're definitely more of a transition team than Houston. But don't be like surprised by the fact that Houston is playing with a crazy pace as of late. Like I think everyone thinks of them as a slow team. They're playing with some damn good pace. And again, guys, the leans on the player props, it's Kyle Kuzma over 21.5 points and Fred VanVleet over 8.5 assists. Neither of which I consider, those are just the best 2 options I found. Neither of one of them I consider even worthy of a potential second look towards a final play. All right, before we move on with the slate, I do got to talk to you about Sleeper. You guys got to check it out. If it is available in your state and you are not on Sleeper, make sure to go check it out. 2 things. First off, if you sign up today using the link in the pinned comment, you get this Nikola Jokic over 0.5 points square. I mean, the dude's pretty good. I think he puts in 1 bucket, right? You also will get your first deposit matched. You could throw in $50. They'll match it. New account balance of $100. You could throw in $100. You'll have a new account balance of $200. Wherever you put in, they will double. Go ahead and check out Sleeper, guys. That link, again, is in the pinned comment. If it's available in your state, go ahead and check it out. I know they moved out of some states with just some regulation and stuff that's going on, and they're kind of altering it, like whether it's sleepers verse or sleepers picks. Like, go ahead and check it out. If it is in your state, go ahead and sign up, because I think this is an awesome app. They have so many options, and what I like is that each and every one of your selections has its own multiplier. It doesn't just follow a fixed payout structure like all the other apps out there. So go check out Sleeper, guys. That link is in the pinned comment. You guys see me all the time posting YouTube shorts and TikToks and Instagram reels of my sleeper picks. I really do love the app that much. Go ahead and check it out. But let's get back into the slate here. All right, next up, we have Brooklyn hosting New Orleans here. Right now, Brooklyn getting 7.5 points at home. They're coming off of 3 straight losses and 3 straight losses against the spread, whereas New Orleans playing some good basketball. They've won 6 of their last 7 games. Against the spread in their last 10, they're 6-3-1. Herb Jones is listed as probable on the injury report, as is Larry Nance Jr., and then we obviously have no Ben Simmons because he hates basketball. He's out for the year. But Dorian Finney-Smith is listed as questionable on the Brooklyn side of things. So a couple injuries to note here, but nothing, at least in my opinion, that would sway me either direction here. I do like New Orleans minus the 7.5 points. Again, they're playing better basketball. They've had a couple days rest here. New Orleans, when they do have a rest advantage over their opponent, which they do have a 1-day rest advantage over the Nets right now, they've covered in 63% of their games. They've covered in nearly 60% of their away games this season as well. So I don't mind laying that 7.5 points. I do think this could be a game that has some same game parlay potential, because I'd love to get that spread down, but there's also a few player props that we'll talk about in a second that I would also like to kind of, finagle and massage the numbers a little bit, but I don't mind them with their straight up numbers either. So we'll talk about that in a second. When it comes to a total, this one did kind of throw me. I went back and forth on this one just briefly for a little bit. In terms of what I ultimately land on, I am going to look at the over now. I think New Orleans, their defense has been fairly good. They're kind of a middle-of-the-pack pace, but that Brooklyn team, their pace has really dropped significantly, and their transition offense is just god-awful. Like, forget the defense they're playing. They're shooting under 50% in transition opportunities, which is not very good. The transition defense of the Pelicans and even, the Nets, isn't all that terrible either. So if this game does start to run and gun, I don't necessarily hate the spot and the chances that those run and gun situations don't always turn into points, right? So I'll lean towards that they do turn into points. So I'll lean towards what we're looking at when it comes to this total as an over. But a lot of the data, like I just threw at you, kind of points towards, this could be a tough spot for it. So I'm kind of on the fence, like I said, going back and forth. If this was, all right, let me say this. If this was a 224.5, I'd probably be looking at under. But because the 216.5 line, I do think that we can get into the early 220s. So even though a lot of this data based on Brooklyn's pace dropping, New Orleans kind of middle of the pack pace, I just see some successful transition basketball in some regards here. So though that probably confuse the hell out of you, I'm leaning towards the over, okay? It's probably my least favorite play in this game. In fact, if you made it into this far into the video, go ahead and comment transition down below. Let me know you make it that far, because when we see breakdowns in the middle of videos, you gotta love it. But again, it's something that kind of I went back and forth on multiple times on this morning. All right, let's jump into some player props here, though. In terms of what we're looking at, I got 3 of them. First off, I'm looking at Dennis Schroeder over 6.5 assists. Potential assists here. Like I said, shout out to Outlier for including this. He's averaging 14 potential assists per game. I tell you guys, the way that I like to use potential assists, that stat to my advantage, is saying, all right, take the potential assists, cut it in half. That should be the floor of the assists that he gets per, in these games, not dependent on matchup, right? So matchups obviously are massive here, but New Orleans looks like they're covering the point guard position really well when it comes to potential assists. But if we flash up here, and this is a site called Courtside Pal, completely free, right? This looks at players and their player type versus that team. So if we go to assists, playmaking here, you could see when it comes to New Orleans, middle of the pack here, 13th ranked in terms of his playmaking style. This is Dennis Schroeder, right? His playmaking style. So it's not like they're going to really clamp down like we see here, 6th fewest allowed. His type of playmaking from that point guard position actually bodes pretty well. He's hit it in 8 of his last 10 games. Again, that potential assist number I do really like. Last 5 games here, it's not going to look all that great because they don't have the potential assists from there, but 14, 9, 7, 14, not all that terrible. We could stay on the same team and within the same category. Mikal Bridges over 3.5 assists. He checks out over on Courtside Pal as well, but he's also hit this in 8 of his last 10 games, and same exact thing, right? Cut that in half. Potential assists 7. His line should be 3.5. Boom, there it is. I like the spot. And honestly, he only had 2 assists last time they played, right? That was earlier this year. But look at this, 8 potential assists. You cut that in half. He technically should have ended with 4 assists in that game, which would have cashed this line, right? And he's hit the over here in 56% of games this season. He's hit it in 65% of the games his last 20, and he's hit it in 8 of his last 10, coming off of 4 and 5 assists a game. I don't really mind this spot for Mikal Bridges. And then another net that I'm looking at, now this is only because it is a plus 100 play. Nick Claxton under 9.5 rebounds. This is a spot in which the Pelicans, they've let up a decent kind of middle of the pack when it comes to preventing centers from grabbing boards. But Nick Claxton's track record against the Pelicans here, 2 straight games going under, this one being this season in 22 minutes of play. Now, expecting to play a little bit more, he only had 11 rebound chances. We're asking him to get 10 rebounds against this team today. I do like that for some plus money. So to recap that game, because I know I threw a little, confusion wrench at you there. I like the Pelicans here minus the points. I slightly like the over, even though it's almost like everything's telling me it should be an under game, but that line just seems a little bit too low. And then those 3 player props that we just looked at. All right, next up, we got the Spurs taking on the Mavs. Now, the Mavs have owned this matchup here. Rightfully so. I mean, they're the better team right now, but they have won 9 of the last 10 against the Spurs here. The over has hit in 8 of the last 10, and the Mavs have covered in 6 of the last 10. And I don't see any reason why it would be different today. Now, in terms of the injuries, definitely worth noting that Exum, Doncic are both on the injury report listed as probable. So if Doncic doesn't play, then we probably either pass on this game or actually flip to the Spurs, to be completely honest. But as of right now, I got to lean towards the Mavs. In terms of how they're playing, they're coming off of that nice win against Denver, 1-point win. They were dogs in that spot. That was at home, though. But they've won 5 of their last 6 games. They've covered in 6 straight games. Even in the game they lost against OKC, they played before Denver. They covered in that game, right? They only lost by like 7 points. They're 8-point dogs. So yeah, 6-0 in their last 6 here. In terms of San Antonio, I do think that they're playing better basketball than even their recent record would present, but just not good enough to be able to trust right now with our hard-earned bread, right? Like, if you're making money here and you're putting it down on a sports game, you got to trust the Mavericks in this spot, at least in my opinion. So I'll take them minus 8.5. The total at 233. I do like the over. I have a feeling that could be a fairly public play because of both these teams' transitions and even like the lack of defense that we've seen. Even though Dallas's defense has had a couple decent spots, they held Chicago and Golden State, and these are both within the last 5 games, 2 sub 100. I think those are more Chicago and Golden State problems, not necessarily the defense of Dallas like clamping down, right? So I'm gonna like the over. I do think that this could be a public spot, but I don't expect much defense in this game. Now, in terms of player props, you ready to see a lot of green? We're over here looking at Victor Wembanyama over 2.5 first quarter rebounds. Like, guys, how many times can I take this and cash it, right? It's getting absolutely absurd. We know Dallas isn't the best rebounding team, but you could see he's cashed this in 10 straight games. He's cashed it in, what is this, 1, 2, 3, that's 7. He's cashed it in 12 of his last 13. It's just absolutely absurd. Last time he played Dallas, though, only 2 rebounds in both of those, but he played 6 minutes in the first quarter. As of late, he's actually bumped that up to 7 minutes as of late. So I do think this is a good spot. And again, this is just a guy that's just cashing. This is much like we went on the, the 5 or 6 game train of Kristaps Porzingis over 1.5 threes. And I was like, guys, I'll just take it until it falls off. Like, it's already a profitable strategy. 1 loss is not going to kill us on the season. Similar thing that we're doing here. In terms of odds, minus 125 on DraftKings. Only Caesar's offering this right now at 20 cents less. So, I mean, I like the odds over on DraftKings as well. And then we move over to Jeremy Sohan here. I'm looking at his assist line. I also don't really mind his rebounds plus assists, but you could see his potential assists as of late have really been there. 10, 4, 5, and 8. The minutes have also been there climbing. I mean, this is an anomaly, but if he gives you 30 plus minutes in a spot like this in a run and gun game, I really don't mind him getting a couple assists here. Not that he's going to be the most used guy or the offense runs through him, but we're only asking for 3 assists, right? But like I said, I also don't mind his over rebounds and assists, because if we flash to this, it's like, oh yeah, okay, well, he's cashed out in just 5 of his last 10 rebounds and assists. He's hitting 8 of his last 10. My one concern is the fact that, does he get enough rebound opportunities? You can see rebound chances, he is averaging 14 there, so as of late, he's been getting plenty, but in his past few games against Dallas here, he only had those 10 rebound chances. We're going to need a lot more than that. So both of these actually have a chance over 9.5 rebounds plus assists, as well as 2.5 assists to be a final play. So keep an eye on the pinned comment. But this Wembanyama one, we're probably already going to lock it in as a final play, because we've just been absolutely cashing this as of late. And like I said, it's already a profitable strategy for us. We can keep that going until one loss, right? All right, guys, before we do get into the last game, I want to shout out my social medias at EvGuyBoston over on Twitter/X. We're posting a lot of content over there, and that is probably the best place. You could DM me, get in touch with me, and stuff like that. So make sure you guys go and follow me there. And then over on Instagram at EvPicks, picks with a Z. That's also been rotating. In fact, there it is right now. Go follow me over there on Instagram. We're posting a lot more short-form content, additional player prop plays throughout the day, and just some fun content. So make sure you guys go check that out, as well as my TikTok. Same thing, sort of as Instagram. A lot of short form content, but that's EvPicks with 2 Z's. So yeah, I hate to have all 3 of those with different names, but it is what it is. Go follow me there, guys, would be much appreciated. But let's go ahead and jump into this last game of today's slate. If you're not subscribed yet, hit that damn subscribe button. Let's go. We have the Minnesota Timberwolves taking on the Nuggets. Honestly, so this spread's going to seem kind of big, but I understand why it's there, and I think there are a few factors here that are definitely worth looking into. So I like the Nuggets minus the 7.5 points. These factors that I'm about to talk about, if those weren't the case, then I do think that that'd be too many points to give Minnesota. But Minnesota here on a back-to-back situations this year, they've covered in just 40% of games. They've also only covered in 48% of games at home. So there kind of goes the idea of, oh, the Nuggets have struggled at home. And then you throw in the fact that the Nuggets are coming off of a loss after winning, I think it was like 9 of the previous 8. So it's like they're going to bounce back probably in a decent way. Last time they lost, they're in Denver, but they beat Boston as underdogs, right? So it's like they don't take losses lightly. And you throw in the fact that this is a Minnesota team that's still without Karl-Anthony Towns, and Rudy Gobert is actually listed as a game-time decision. There's just too many factors here that point towards Denver. So again, if all things were equal and in a vacuum, and like we didn't have Karl-Anthony Towns out, Denver hadn't lost, Minnesota wasn't on a back-to-back, like I would say 7.5 points way too much to give this Minnesota team, but all those things are happening, and like that is the situation right now. So I'll take Denver here minus the 7.5 points, even though I don't totally love it, because I do think this Minnesota team, obviously with that defense, can kind of stay in any game and make it difficult. You also throw in the fact that this year, their one meeting, Minnesota won, and honestly, Denver looked really bad. I think it was like a 115-90 game or something like that. That was with, I believe everybody played for Denver as well. So it's like they could definitely be like, yeah, we want some revenge there. So a lot of factors here making me like the Denver side of things. When it comes to a total, I'm going to lean towards the over here as well, because I think these are 2 really good basketball teams, no kidding. Minnesota's on a back-to-back, so that's going to lessen their defensive intensity just a little bit, right? So I do think that this one gets in maybe into the 215, 16, 17 range, which isn't a high-scoring game, but this total is way down there at 213. Now, when it comes to player props, this would jump off the page and look like a game in which it'd be a crazy good player prop spot, right? I don't necessarily love many player props in this spot, but I do have a couple for you here. First off, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. We'll go back to the well. We cashed this a couple days ago, over 1.5 assists. Does Minnesota allow a lot of assists? No, but Pope, the last 2 games here, 4 potential assists and 5 potential assists, averaging 4 potential assists over his last 10 games. Head-to-head here, too, averaging 4 potential assists in his last 10 games against Minnesota. Jamal Murray over 32.5 PRA. I like that spot from him. He's a guy that obviously kind of gets up for big games, which you like to see in a case like this, because it should be a relatively big game. And he's cashed this fairly regularly as of late. 8 of his last 10. He's cashed it in 5 of his last 8 against Minnesota. Minnesota, again, we can't really talk about the matchup because they're a good defensive team overall. But in terms of what Murray's been doing as of late, 12 potential assists per game, 8 rebound chances. He's shooting the ball nearly 18 times. Like, the volume should be there for him as he plays 35 plus minutes. So I don't mind his over PRA as well. And guys, it's going to wrap it up for today's show. Hope you guys did enjoy. If you did, go ahead and hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button too if you are new. Feels good to be back from vacation. We only took 1 off day on that week vacation, and it was much needed. But I love doing these videos, man, and you guys make it so worth it. So hopefully you guys are enjoying the fact that we are back in action, and we got MLB coming, man. We're gonna be doing at the same time in just a couple days. We're gonna be doing NBA, golf, and MLB all at the same time. Yikes, we're ready for that grind. But we'll catch you guys in the next one, all right? Peace out.